Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. I don't know who Democrat New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez ticked off, but they finally got him. His first trial over allegedly trading influence for gifts ended in a mistrial back in 2017. But this time around, Menendez wasn't so lucky. He seemed so sure that his luck would hold this time around that he decided to run for re-election anyways as an independent when his party ditched him for a new candidate. He's now looking at a jury conviction today on several charges relating to bribery and corruption, some of which could result in prison sentences of up to 20 years. Despite maintaining his innocence in the face of all the luxury cars, gold bars, and other gifts that were found inside his home, it's clear that Menendez, from his perch on the highly influential Senate Foreign Relations Committee, has been serving as a senator for Egypt instead of for New Jersey, as even some in his own party, like John Fetterman, have been forced to admit. Joining us now to discuss is Benjamin Weingarten, the editor-at-large of Real Clear Investigations and a senior contributor for The Federalist. Ben, thanks for being back tonight.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Great. So your response to today's guilty verdict is that Obama finally got him. Can you explain some of that for us?
Yeah, well, this is sort of tongue-in-cheek, but there's some truth to it, I think, as well. And the basic premise is that there are a lot of corrupt people in Washington, D.C. And obviously, Bob Menendez is up there in the ranks, particularly as the former chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, who appears to have sold out the country to the Qataris and the Egyptians. And his corruption goes back really many years in my home state of New Jersey. That said, the first prosecution against Bob Menendez, which failed in early 2017 or in 2017, was brought under the Obama DOJ. And I speculated, and many others speculated at the time, that the Biden DOJ pursued Bob Menendez as payback for, or to penalize him for his opposition, first and foremost, to the Iran nuclear deal, which is the so-called signature achievement of the Obama administration on foreign policy grounds. And then probably to a lesser extent as well, Menendez's more hawkish view, a more skeptical and hostile view towards the then Castro Cuban regime, also which flied in the face of the Obama administration's policies. So I found it notable, if the Obama DOJ is going to go after a Democrat, isn't it interesting that it would go after a Democrat who would oppose the signature piece of foreign policy of that administration? And while that prosecution failed, now we had this new prosecution, again, under this time the Biden-controlled DOJ. I would say one thing one could argue is that perhaps this is trying to make up for the failed prosecution previously, if we're setting aside the merits and the clear corruption, and I think open and shut case on its face. Set that aside for a moment. But the other aspect is this provides some more cover for the administration to say, you see, our DOJ, it doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat. We're going to go after the Democrat, and we're even going to go after Democrats who engage in foreign influence peddling as a means to insulate a former chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the President of the United States, Joe Biden.
And I think it was a similar dynamic that played out earlier this year, and I want to say it was Democrat Congressman Henry Cuellar. I could be misremembering exactly the Democrat, but same thing. He's a solid Democrat, and then he starts to break a little bit with the Democrat Party line on open borders, at least just a little. Not saying that he's full shut down, secure the border, but he at least broke with Democrats a little bit on their full open borders agenda. And the next thing you know, the DOJ kind of swoops in and indicts, and now he's facing his own issues as well. So do you think that perhaps, as happy as we are to see justice here finally in the case of Senator Bob Menendez, that what you were laying out should perhaps temper a little bit of our enthusiasm, only because we see the active lawfare against the right to just destroy the right, to completely, rip us apart as a party, to make us not as organized as we could be otherwise. But then at the same time, on the left is policing its own borders in the sense that it's pushing its ideologues further and further to the left